We all love a good horror movie, right? What if we could be in those horror movies? That'd be crazy, right? Well, I have the product for you. Oh shit. In the spirit of spooky season, I decided I wanted to take a look at horror games as a whole. In this video, I'll talk about my favorites and why I feel like horror games have died off. A genre that became so bloated and oversaturated that nowadays it's hard to even find a good one. This is Lumi, and subscribe if you like this kind of content. Enjoy. First, I feel like it would be disrespectful not to go back and look at how this genre started. In 1972, the Magnavox Odyssey was released, the first home game console. The Magnavox Odyssey wasn't very powerful whatsoever, so games would come with plastic overlays for the screen, cards, and other accessories. Released alongside the console, one of the first horror games ever was released, Haunted House. In the game, one player was a detective and another player was a ghost. A deck of secret message cards would be in front of the detective, and clue cards would be in front of the ghost. If you went behind a window, you'd have to go back to the last clue. If you skipped a clue, you'd lose those points. When the detective player is next to the ghost player pressed reset on the controller and yelled boo, creating one of the first ever jump scares. It's a little confusing to understand and explain, so I'll leave a video in the description explaining the game better than I do. And a while after that, horror games weren't really super compelling. The idea was there, but the technology wasn't. Let's skip way forward to the year 2012. Slender the 8 Pages was released on June 26, 2012, eventually finding its way into the YouTuber Let's Play community, and changed horror games in a substantial way. Based off of a popular creepypasta at the time, Slender the 8 Pages was a game where you ran around a forest, collecting notes pinned to trees and in buildings with tight corners. Of course, this is a horror game, so there's this tall, completely white unit chasing you around, only moving when you don't look at him. He teleports around, and if you look at him for too long, then... This game wasn't a technological marvel, but honestly it was my first real experience with horror games. I think this started the beginning of a golden era of horror games, but also started the issue that caused the downfall of this genre. Now, I quickly want to mention FNAF because yes, this was where my obsession with horror games began. My first video I released was Why Five Nights at Freddy's Changed My Life, and yes, that title was serious. In 2014, I was 9 years old, so when I got sucked into horror games, it wasn't just a phase. It changed the way I view horror games forever. If you want a more in-depth video on FNAF, you'll see that video at the end of this one, so go drop a like and comment on that for me. Next, I want to talk about PT, which was the next horror game that really fucking scared me. PT, also known as Silent Hill Playable Teaser, is a test game released on the PS4 only 4 days after Five Nights at Freddy's. This game was fucking eerie. The sound design, the gross and disturbing moments, the countless YouTube gameplays really had me sucked into this game. Sadly, the full game was never finished, as Hideo Kojima, who with the help of Guillermo del Toro, who created this teaser, was fired from Konami. The game was cancelled, but PT itself became a cult classic horror game, and just really had the perfect horror elements. I'm gonna bring up a couple extra games that I didn't already mention because I wasn't as into them, but they definitely made an impact. Amnesia: The Dark Descent is a survival horror game that released in 2010, and kinda is the reason PewDiePie broke out on the YouTube scene. In the game, you wake up and walk through a castle avoiding enemies and solving puzzles. It was a really big game for the time. I played around with it a little bit, but I really haven't finished the full game. Until Dawn is an incredible game as well, and it was something I didn't get to play, but it was released in 2015, and similar to the Telltale games where you choose the path that the game goes down, and the ending is different depending on your choices. It takes place on a mountain in a cabin, and kinda reminds me of Friday the 13th and Evil Dead. But why does it feel like horror games aren't the same anymore? I haven't heard of anything really compelling coming out soon. I go on itch.io a lot to look at new stuff, but honestly, there's like nothing that really catches my eye. I'm one of the biggest horror fans, and I haven't even really heard of any upcoming games that I'm interested in. Indie horror games are all like mascot based now to appeal to kids, like Poppy Playtime, which I haven't even played, but I'm so thrown off because of how it's kind of marketed towards kids. Same with Five Nights at Freddy's. It kind of went from a dark, twisted series to what we have now with Security Breach. And I don't really consider that a horror game at this point. Now, another example of a horror game that kind of lost its horror element was Hello Neighbor, which was promising from the first alpha build, but after Alpha 1 it lost all its scary parts and just became a puzzle game. Now, there are a couple exceptions, like Puppet Combo, who've released a lot of really good games in the last few years that I've actually enjoyed like watching and playing, like Nun Massacre and Murder House. Those were really fucking good games. But other than like that, I really don't know any other horror games I've really been into these last few years. I just feel like horror has fallen as the best genre of gaming. If you disagree, let me know in the comments and tell me your opinion on it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.